The New York Times is reporting today that President Bush has decided to send an unusually tough message to one of its stronger allies in the war on terror. We're talking about Pakistan. Now, this article goes on to say that the president has warned Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf that a newly Democratic Congress could cut funding to his country unless the Pakistani forces become more aggressive in cracking down on the hunt for al-Qaeda operatives along the Afghan-Pakistani border. Now this, as Vice President Dick Cheney makes an unannounced visit to the region and has a sit-down session with President Musharraf. Joining us now is P.J. Crowley, former Special Assistant to former President Clinton for National Security Affairs. P.J., good to have you here. We saw Tony Snow just a few moments ago. He seems to take issue with that choice of word, a tough message to Pakistan. But do you think the U.S. is starting to say to Musharraf, look, you made this deal with the tribal chiefs. This is not a good thing for the region. The terrorists are having a resurgence. How strong a message do you think it might be?
Well, it should be a strong message, and I understand where Tony's coming from in terms of being careful about how you characterize it publicly. But the fact is, and the Bush administration has been rightfully concerned about this for the last 6 months, that Pervez Musharraf has had this delicate dance. He's trying to do enough to placate the United States, but not doing so much as he destabilizes a significant portion of his country. But the Taliban and al-Qaeda have a de facto safe haven along the Pakistan-Afghan border. It has very serious ramifications for the security in the region.
And it could have serious ramifications for us if it appears that the U.S. is pulling the strings for Musharraf. If he were to somehow wind up out of power, we don't know who we would get running that nuclear nation.
I think we'd like to see Pakistan evolve back into a civilian-run, open society. That's a long-term project. In the short term, Musharraf is probably the most stable political leader that we have. That said, clearly there are elements within the Pakistani government that have strong ties to the Taliban and historic ties to the Mujahideen, a portion of whom became al-Qaeda. This has great ramifications both in terms of stability in Pakistan. While the Taliban and al-Qaeda are rebuilding, they are reforming, they can put pressure on the Karzai government, they probably can't topple the government. But also of greater concern to the United States is the fact that increasingly, some of the plots we've seen around the world, particularly in Europe and Britain, have ties back to Pakistan. So of great concern to us is that this terrorism infrastructure is being rebuilt in Pakistan and it has global repercussions.
Right. And if Pakistan is the source for some of the plots you talked about, what can the U.S. really do? What kind of pressure can it exert on Musharraf to get him to crack down on the terrorists more? Is it a matter of threatening to cut off aid?
It can be a factor. There is not a great answer here on the Pakistan side because the Pakistani control of the tribal areas is very minimal, and they had tried some military action in the tribal areas and it backfired on the Musharraf government. I think part of what we need to do, in addition to sending the strong message that the Vice President has said and Secretary Gates before, we also have to look at what we're doing on the Afghanistan side of the border. One of the areas is we're spending 5 times the resources and personnel in Iraq that we are in Afghanistan. I think we really have to fundamentally look at how we can increase pressure in that region from the Afghan side of the border to prevent those infiltrations as well.
Right. P.J., quickly before I let you get away, do you think there's a chance that the U.S. military might really have to step up the attacks on these training camps in that Waziristan area?
Potentially, yes. We've done some of that work with the use of Predator drones. It's very sensitive when we ourselves cross into that border. But first and foremost, I think we have to shore up that border between Afghanistan and Pakistan before the spring offensive starts. That actually requires more troops, and that's something I know the Pentagon's looking at.
All right. We'll see. P.J. Crowley, good to have you on board. Thank you very much. Senator